What's up, world? Let me tell you about this beard growth oil I got from 12 tribes on Earth. 8 ounces of oily goodness with a nozzle that prevents sprays and spills, and soft ingredients that make it perfect addition to anyone's morning routine. From coconut to castor, all these oils are hand chosen. After using this herbal blend, the biggest thing I noticed is how soft, how strong my hair was, and how good I feel. Pick up your bottle today and make your beard the star of the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, people have been asking, how did these white farmers get so much land? And how did black farmers lose so much of their land when at one point in time, they owned 14 million acres? Well, the answer is a little complicated, but definitely not hard to understand. The reason why they got so much land, and it's due to many factors: laws, stealing land through white mobs, and the U.S. government taking land from black farmers and giving it to white farmers. Now, did they pay for their land? Some of it they did, but a big portion of it they didn't. Okay? Especially when they tell you, oh, this farm has been in my family for over 100 years. Chances are a lot of that land is stolen. All right? There is a very ugly history that's attached to white farmers in the U.S. And we're going to get into that so you can know how this was done. Now, we know they still heavily use eminent domain, mainly on our people, but it was other things they did. They did a lot of illegal auctioning of black farm land in this country. They would do little things to steal land away. They would use the sheriff's department to steal land. And they used the courtroom to steal land from farmers that would try to fight it legally.
Do y'all see what's happening? Do y'all see what they doing to black farmers? Under Trump's orders with his anti-DEI initiatives, the USDA is ending support for black farmers, claiming that they have sufficiently addressed historic discrimination. I don't think most people understand that since 1920, black farmers have lost 90% of black-owned farmland.
We look at 1920, there were 16 million acres of land, and present day, you look at there's only 2 million acres of black-owned land in the country. That's 14 million acres of land that has just disappeared from the black agricultural community.
One of the reasons is because the KKK used to terrorize black landowners and burn crosses in front of their family homes, lynch the black men that were the heads of those households, forcing those families to flee out of safety and fear for their lives, leaving the land behind for white landowners to take in their absence. But the main reason for the loss of all of this black-owned farmland is because of direct discrimination by the United States government. They used to give subsidies to white farmers that they would deny for black farmers. The banking system that would give loans to white farmers to upgrade their farming equipment, but they would deny those same loans to black farmers. The discrimination was so obvious and so prevalent that in 1996, John Boy Jr. led a lawsuit against the United States government and won a $2 billion settlement for black farmers. Now, it's 2025, so almost 2 decades later, that settlement has still not fully been paid out. Why? Because white farmers, of course, countersued, claiming that it was reverse discrimination for black farmers to get this settlement. Now, the crazy thing about that is when you calculate the amount of wealth that was stolen and robbed from black farmers over the course of that time, that $2 billion doesn't even scratch the surface for the amount that's truly owed.
Black farmland lost in that 75-year period or so was worth $326 billion.
Think about all of the wealth that has been extracted from these families.
Now, just last month, my company, Actively Black, released a cotton line using 100% Black-owned supply chain made from cotton grown by Black farmers so that we could support our Black farmers with our Black dollars from our community. We're not waiting on anybody else to save us. We can do this with our people and save ourselves. We partnered with Bridgeforth Farms, a fifth-generation family of Black farmers who have owned their land for 150 years, and Comco Cotton, so that we could directly support Black farmers with the cotton that we're buying that goes into this collection. Now listen, we are paying above market prices for the cotton and the labor to these Black farmers so that we can provide financial support to them in a meaningful way. So yes, that is why the shirt costs $60. Now, according to McKinsey data, Black people in America spend $30 billion a year on apparel. So we're just fine spending the money to generate wealth for everybody else but ourselves. If we just shifted 1% of what we already spend with everybody else and spent it with brands that are buying their cotton from Black farmers, we could literally generate our own revenue that supports Black farmers and saves their land. Now, we can get mad, we can boycott, we can fight each other, or we can collectively and actively put our energy towards solutions that actually uplift our people and our community. And to me, that's what being actively Black means.
And these judges would side with white farmers and they would get their land taken away. Sometimes they would use predatory loans, and what they would do is if one payment was missed, the Black farmer would get foreclosed on. So they did a lot of different trickeries to get that land away from Black farmers and give it to white farmers. So let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen.
They went to their graves in poverty when they should have been rich.
Tonight, families of Black farmers in Chambers County are rallying together in hopes of taking back the land they say was stolen from them more than a century ago. This is a fight that has been going on for decades.
Dozens of descendants of Black farmers in Chambers County gathered in front of Anahuac oil field, land that once belonged to their ancestors and they say should be theirs.
Lord, we ask you to walk with us as we're on this journey.
Catherine Banks, a descendant of William Godfrey, says her grandfather signed a portion of his land over to her family. However, Banks believes county officials found fault in what he wrote on the deed, so they didn't honor it.
The same county official that notarized their signature notarized the X. And this was sold to people who they didn't even know.
The problem is that X meant Godfrey couldn't read or write. For the past few decades, the families have poured over records at the Texas General Land Office, the records showing Godfrey could in fact read and write. They claim they were robbed of not only their land, but also the wealth that would come with it, as it produced over 1 million barrels of oil and even more natural gas.
These families out here have oil leases where their proceeds supposed to be 1/8 of the royalties coming off the land, but no one have received 1 penny.
They could have struck it rich. Instead, they claim they were forced off the land, and many of their ancestors have died in poverty as a result.
Other people reap the benefits from these descendants' families that were forced off property because it had precious minerals.
Banks, who worked on Godfrey's field for 20 years, says she'll continue fighting for justice along with the other families.
Think about it. How would you like to work something that you supposedly own but was taken from you, and you watch others get rich from it?
We reached out to the Texas General Land Office to find out where things stand in the family's efforts to get their land back, but have not heard back.
Let's picture the scene. It's the years right after the Civil War, and newly freed Black families are buying land, building homes, and starting successful farms. For a brief moment, there's hope. Land means stability, autonomy, and a shot at generational wealth. But here's the setup. This progress didn't go unchecked. Instead, it faced a relentless barrage of obstacles, both subtle and violent. Now, you might be wondering, how did these families get land in the first place? Many bought small plots outright, sometimes pooling savings from several relatives. If you think of equity like planting a seed, these families were finally able to put down real roots. But their newfound ownership was always fragile. Would those roots survive? That sets up the conflict. Black farmers started building thriving communities, but these successes threatened the old power structures. The question became, how far would white landowners and institutions go to stop Black prosperity?
Welcome to Afrovision Network. Black people, I'm here to tell you, we got more problems than a drowning man. And this ain't no lie. White America is at it again. They at it again. Y'all know we're losing our land, right? And it ain't just by accident. For generations, black families built wealth through land, farming, cattle, crops. But today, over 90% of that land is gone. And why? Because of forced sales, shady legal tactics, and straight up government neglect. White farmers get billions in federal subsidies. Black farmers left out, denied loans, or forced into debt. It's systemic. It's theft. And it's how they steal generational wealth right from under us. If we don't organize and protect our land and educate each other, they'll keep robbing us without firing a shot. Land is power, y'all, and we're losing it. Follow for real history, real solutions, and how we rise before there's nothing left to reclaim. They're not just taking land, they're erasing our legacy. We need to protect what's ours before it's gone for good.
And so begins a century-long struggle where every bit of Black progress was met with a wave of legal tricks, financial traps, and, when all else failed, outright violence. So as we move forward, keep this image in mind: a patchwork of Black-owned fields, each acre a hard-won victory, and each one under constant threat. What happened next is one of the most devastating and least discussed stories in American history. Let's get into the mechanics. Imagine you're a Black farmer in 1900. You need a loan to buy seeds or repair your tools. But here's the catch. Local banks run by white businessmen either refuse to lend or offer predatory loans with sky-high interest. That's our first technical term, predatory lending. Think of it as a loan designed not to help you, but to trip you up. Now, if a drought hits or crops fail, you're forced to miss a payment. Suddenly, the bank calls in the loan. Here's foreclosure, when the lender takes your land as payment.
They fed America, and America stole their land. For generations, Black farmers built wealth from the soil, passing down land, crops, and independence. But starting in the early 1900s, the USDA denied them loans, insurance, and support. White farmers got help. Black farmers got foreclosure notices. In 1920, there were nearly 1 million Black farmers. Today, fewer than 45,000 remain. That's a 90% loss, billions in stolen generational wealth. Some were threatened, others were killed. Most were just pushed out by policy. How do you rebuild what was stolen acre by acre, family by family? This wasn't mismanagement. It was targeted discrimination, and its effects are still here today. Drop your thoughts in the comments and follow for more Black history they don't teach.
In courts, almost always with white judges, side with the banks. You lose everything: your land, your home, your future. Maybe you're thinking, wasn't there any recourse? Could Black farmers band together to fight back? The reality is, the legal and financial systems were rigged from top to bottom. Even when Black farmers tried to pool resources, the banks could simply deny service to all of them. That conflict needing credit but being denied fair terms set up a scenario where losing land wasn't just possible, it was practically inevitable. The result? Generational wealth that could have grown was uprooted before it ever had a chance. So, next time you hear about bad luck or poor business decisions in Black farming history, remember the deck was stacked from the start. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked legal pitfalls: Heir property. Imagine this. Your grandparents passed down the family farm, but there's no official will because, honestly, who could afford a lawyer? The land becomes what's called heir property, where everyone who's descended from the original owner now owns a share. Sounds simple, right? Here's the conflict. Any distant relative, even someone you've never met, can sell their share to an outsider. White speculators, people who buy land to flip it for profit, would find that one distant cousin, pay them a tiny sum, and then use their newfound share to force a court-ordered sale of the entire property. That's partition action, our second technical term. Picture the resolution. The whole farm goes up for auction, usually selling for far less than it's worth. The original black family.
By 1997, black farmers lost more than 90% of the 16 million acres owned by 1910. So they did a cumulative result of the value of the land lost. And they basically it's $326 billion as far as the total cumulative of the total land that was lost. And so basically that would put just those farmers, if they could have held on to that land, that would have put them as far as the 41st ranked country as far as GDP. So $326 billion. But 90% by 1997, so between 1920 and 1997, 90% of those 16 million acres were gone.
Often can't afford to buy it back. In the blink of an eye, generations of hard work vanish. Now, you might be asking, why couldn't they fight this in court? But remember, access to legal help was rare. The rules, written in legal jargon, were practically a foreign language. This loophole has chipped away at black land ownership for decades. It's not just a story about paperwork, it's a story about the intentional design of laws that made theft perfectly legal. Now, let's step outside the courtroom and into the fields. What if the law wasn't enough? White supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan used violence as their legal backup. We're talking about arson, burning homes and barns, and lynching, a word that still sends a chill down the spine. Let me tell you a story. Entire black towns, like Rosewood in Florida, were wiped off the map overnight. Families fled with only the clothes on their backs, leaving land behind. That land didn't just disappear, it was quickly claimed by white neighbors or taken over by local governments. The technical term here is racial terrorism, using fear and violence to enforce a racist social order. And the psychological impact, what you might call generational trauma, lingered long after the smoke cleared. Now you might wonder, why didn't officials step in to protect black landowners? In fact, local sheriffs and courts often looked the other way or even participated in the violence themselves.
In the 1930s, one Mississippi county invented fake debts to steal black farmers' land. It happened in Leflore County. Black farmers who owned small plots were suddenly told they owed back taxes or unpaid seed loans. Most of these debts were made up on paper. If a farmer couldn't pay immediately, the sheriff would auction off the land to the highest bidder. And who usually bought it? White planters on the county board. One farmer, William Johnson, had his 40 acres seized over a $12 debt that he swore he had already paid. That land still sits in a white-owned family trust today. Historians estimate thousands of acres of black-owned farmland vanish this way. Generational wealth wiped out overnight by a courthouse scam. It wasn't a system error. It was a system designed to dispossess black families and feed Mississippi's plantation elite. Follow for more Mississippi stories that reveal how black wealth was stolen in plain sight.
This wasn't isolated, it was systematic. When law and business failed to take the land, violence finished the job. That's a dark chapter we have to confront if we want to understand today's racial wealth gap. You might assume the federal government would step in as a safeguard. Unfortunately, agencies like the USDA actually created another layer of exclusion. Here's how. Programs designed to help farmers like crop subsidies and disaster relief were routinely denied to black farmers. Here's a technical term for you: discriminatory lending. That's when loans and credits are given to some but withheld from others based on race. The USDA, for decades, denied black farmers access to modern tractors, irrigation, and emergency funds after storms. Local white officials often lost paperwork or delayed applications until deadlines passed. Imagine needing drought relief and being told, sorry, you missed the window. It wasn't just bad luck, it was bureaucracy weaponized against black farmers. Now you may be thinking, didn't anyone notice? Over time, lawsuits and government investigations revealed the pattern, but by then, millions of acres were gone. The resolution? Some reforms have come, but the damage, the lost land, the missed opportunities remains a stark legacy.
In 1973, a black farmer in Mississippi did the impossible. He out-earned every white farmer in his county. And weeks later, he was dead. His land, gone. George Levon, Holmes County, owned 900 acres, ran a successful cotton and soy operation, paid every loan, outproduced every other farm in the county. He even taught other black farmers how to cut out middlemen and keep profit in their community. Then a gas line exploded under his tractor shed. George died instantly. The fire burned the barn, his ledgers, and equipment. Investigators blamed faulty wiring, but George's son later found a warning letter from the bank saying his success was unwelcome. That letter disappeared during the fire, too. In 6 months, the land was foreclosed, bought by a white-owned agribusiness for pennies. No charges, no coverage, no justice. Follow for more stories of how Mississippi crushed black success when it couldn't control it.
The federal government didn't just fail to protect, it often led the charge. Let's zoom in on another tactic: trickery at the signing table. Imagine you're asked to sign a document about your property taxes or a new farm program. The legal language is dense, and you trust the lawyer or agent in front of you. But the reality? You just signed away your land without even knowing it. This is called fraudulent conveyance, transferring property ownership through deceit. It's like a shell game, where the land changes hands behind a smokescreen of paperwork. Sometimes black landowners were told they owed back taxes they didn't actually owe. The land would be quietly sold at a tax sale, often with no notice given. If you've ever missed a bill and gotten a late fee, multiply that by 1,000. The stakes here were entire family legacies. Now, you might protest. Weren't there any honest brokers or officials? Sure, some existed, but the system rewarded those who preyed on confusion and desperation. The real resolution? Awareness. Understanding these scams helps us see how business, law, and prejudice worked hand in hand to dispossess black families, and why legal literacy and advocacy are still critical today. Let's fast forward to the present. Black farmers once held over 14 million acres. Today, less than 10% of that remains. That's not just a statistic. It's millions of lost opportunities to build wealth, pass down assets, and shape communities. The technical term here is systemic theft, wealth taken not by accident or neglect.
We should have got 40 acres and a mule when we gained freedom in 1865, but we didn't. Regardless, though, many of us found a way to make it happen, because that's what we do. James Marshall, for example, bought nearly 200 acres of land back. Follow Where's My Land to see how.
But through a carefully coordinated system blending law, finance, and force. Another key term, generational wealth, the assets and resources you inherit from your family. For many Black Americans, this foundation was stolen long before they were born. Now, you might wonder, is this just history, or does it still affect us? The answer: this legacy shows up today in homeownership rates, farm ownership, and the persistent racial wealth gap. Let me leave you with this. Understanding the past isn't just about assigning blame. It's about seeing the full architecture of disadvantage so that when we talk about solutions, we know exactly what's been lost and what justice really requires. So next time you hear about wealth disparities in America, remember the story behind the numbers, the story of land, law, and a century-long fight for fairness.
So now you know. That's why it's so laughable that some of these groups look you in the face and tell you they earned something. And then when you hear the real history, they didn't earn anything. They don't know what earning is. I will go as far as saying that. And the fact that they will have the audacity to look at you and know damn well these farmers got all this stolen land, and their advantage was due to stealing in a government that also helped them do the stealing. So that's why they gained so much. It was not honest in any kind of way. It was no hard work involved. It's just a straight up theft of land. Y'all tell me what you think about this video and what ChatGPT said. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.